she put a pot on she hair and gone. Them a the first one out on the dam. Basket on she head, bucket in each hand. Hold up on she frack, I wanna she grandson. To the market, them a go. For the morning, the day is dawning. For cockcrow to give the villagers a warning. Rise and shine, the birds them a sing. All animal take turn as them join in the waking. Cockcrow, dagaba, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck a quack. Cockcrow, dagaba, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck a quack. Come and hear this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. All day a back down, me now I come home. Inaga, jackass yard for fetchy load. Cockle shy hand, bag over shoulder, running by his side, a Rexy and Rover. From the farm, them a come. Sun a go down but up the river. Some washing clothes, some folks are bathing at the water. Fisherman, they catch them a bring. From a canoe boat, man, them start offloading. Aymara, Kwakwari, Hail Baka Kuma Kuma, even Lokonani. Aymara, Kwakwari, Hail Baka Kuma Kuma, even Bangameri. Listen to this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. Them children glad when the weekend come. Out in the yard, them all gather round. Some a play catcher, some making house from straw. Two who come later, a grandma or grandpa. All a sit down just a wait. Moonlight so bright, it's just the right time to listen story or to say a little nursery rhyme. Grandpa voice a echo in the night as he tell some picnic are there with fright. Oh, Ligan, Mungeza, Massa Kurma, Bura, Nancy, even Watamuma. Oh, Ligan, Mungeza, Massa Kurma, Bura, Nancy, even Watamuma. Yeah, man, that's the true story that tell the people about life in the country, life in the country.
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
If you are looking to have your statutory declaration, affidavit of income, identity, damage or lost passport, lost license, tenancy agreement, agreement of settlement, power of attorney, last will and testament, and certification of documents, then you need to visit the Alastair Collins firm, located at the Kellyan Mall, 162 Lamaha Street in Georgetown, between Camp and Waterloo Street. Alastair Collins is a commissioner of oaths and a justice of the peace. Make certain you visit him or call for more information at 649-6410 or 685-6448 or 503-1451. And there's adequate parking available. Go down to the Alastair Collins firm and have all of your legal issues settled and brought to the fore. Alastair Collins firm. Contact them at Alastair Collins firm.
All right. Hey, guess what? do support those businesses. Alastair firm, go out there, support those businesses, support Andrew's supermarket, support those businesses that support you and your community. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Absolutely nothing is wrong with that. Don't let anybody fool you, right? Just as you guys are tuned into 107.1 FM, you're supporting us here, and we appreciate that. Share the link. It's part of supporting us. Spread the word. Well, this evening, guess what? I have no stranger to you guys. I don't know if sometime he would be running for Senator of the United States, one of those states, maybe congressman, maybe president. You never know, because look at what's happening in America. Look at some of the senators. Look at some of the congressmen and women and so forth. Sometimes you wonder, how have they gotten elected? You know what I mean? But it's democracy. It's democracy. And you never know. Maybe one day you'll turn on your TV and see Tom Anderson running for some high office, senator, Congress, I don't know. And he'll get the support of the people because he's a straight up individual. He's honest. He gets straight to the point. He is fair across the board. He is fair. Now, this is another business out there in Brooklyn for you to go out and support them. I'm told by our operator that Mr. Anderson, Tom Anderson, is already in studio with us, waiting for you guys. And we appreciate the fact that you're sharing the link. We really do appreciate that fact. And look how the guys have us looking in a little small screen, mind you. So Lemon is going to correct that. How do we correct it? You know, how do we do that? All right. So good evening to all of you. Lots and lots of things. Lots of things. Now, where do we start? Lots of things that we need to talk about. The question is, where do we start? Should I just bring my co-host on, Tom, for us to get rocking and rolling? I'm going to wait another 45 seconds or so for you to share the link and let the audience build up at least on social media. In the meantime, I say good evening to all the folks who are listening to us via their radio, 107.1 FM, all across Georgetown, wherever you are. Good evening to everyone. And you know, oftentimes there's something about these villages on the quarantine, something about these villages, and I oftentimes mention them, and we want folks like Tom Anderson and others to get a little familiar with Guyana. This is the quarantine. It's Berbice, once a Dutch colony. And that village is Alnis village on the quarantine. You know, I've had folks say to me, hey, Mark, it's like I know the quarantine because I keep describing and talking about these villages. So good evening to the folks at Alnis village on the quarantine in Guyana, mind you, yes, and Philippine village as well, and all the other villages also on the quarantine. All right, don't feel left out. We remember all of you, wherever you are. It doesn't matter. Good evening to all, every single one of you. Now, what's happening before we get to Tom? You know, there's a lawsuit, $101 million. Tom might be laughing or smiling. 101 million Guyana dollars. A friend of Jack Deere, because Jack Deere loves to go to that individual, not a journalist, not a reporter, was just a cigarette vendor, I believe, or just had a little stall on a little shop front on the roadside, a little stand selling something. I don't know what it is that he was selling, but Jack Deere loves to go to that individual to be interviewed. And so there was a little, whatever it is, between him and another individual, accusing the individual of being something, I don't know, but the individual sued him this morning. Well, sued him, and he was served with court documents to notify him that he's actually being sued for 101 million Guyana dollars. This is what happened, and we can see that this individual obviously afraid. All right. Wind down your window. Here it is, so that I explain to Tom and others who are not from Guyana. That guy, Jack Dale, loves to be interviewed by him. I don't know if you want to call that an interview or whatever. And so he was being served a summons, sued for 101 million Guyana dollars. And so he wanted to talk to the individual who is suing him. It happens in Guyana. Hey, come on, let me talk to you, man. Let's think this over. Let's go this over. We can get this over with right here. Please, I'm begging you. Wind your window down, please. I don't know what else we can talk about quickly before we get to Tom. There is a guy, and I want Tom to also hear this. There's a guy who allegedly shot another guy, killed him, of course, murdered him, according to the information. The police has issued a wanted bulletin for the individual who is in that circle there, that black circle. The person on the right is Bharat Jagdeo, who sits there as vice president of Guyana. Now, these are individuals, they claim that they own the streets, they run the streets, and Jagdeo could say, oh, he takes pictures with everybody, but we understand, according to information, the connections of these guys with some notorious individuals at the office of the president, who Jagdeo was familiar with. Now, that guy in the black circle allegedly killed a guy, like I've said. He's wanted. The police have not issued the wanted bulletin on the police website, on the police page. People are saying that this guy is walking around in the area. Police, they're not going after him at all. He's claiming that he has contacts. He can call his boss. We all know who he calls his boss, right? But I'm just saying this to have our listeners know, to have Tom, and I'm sure Tom is pretty much familiar with what's happening in Guyana. So I'm just reminding folks about this guy, and hopefully the folks from Vice News might be watching. Who knows? I never know. You never know, right? But this is the same Jack Dale. Look at, he has a history of these things, Tom. Look at this. That's Jack Dale again. The guy in the, the guy second from the left, second from the left, his name is Mark Kazurki. He was part of a death squad. And during the time that he was part of a death squad, this was when Bharat Jagdeo was president of Guyana. And this, I believe, is State House, kind of like the White House in the US, but this is State House. We call where the president lives State House. And there was a function at State House, and look who Bharat Jagdeo was in that photograph with. Death squad member, death squad, killing squad. This is the guy. This is him. This is him. Taking that photograph with Jagdeo. He died under questionable circumstances at the Georgetown Public Hospital. My. Tom, good evening and welcome.
Hey, Mark, good evening. Hello, everybody.
Take over from all that you have seen and heard in my introduction.
Yeah, well, thanks for introducing. Hello to everybody again. Glad to be on. Was looking forward to tonight's show. You know, what you're pointing out with Jagdeo, yeah, I've been thinking about it more and over the past few days. And the main thought I've been having about Jagdeo is this. He's from a different time. He's from a time when, there weren't cameras everywhere. He's from a time when there wasn't, internet and cell phones everywhere. He's from a time when it was normal to take payments as a politician whenever someone needed something to get done, period. And that wasn't considered bribery from where he's from. That's not bribery. That's considered the price of doing business. There's nothing wrong with that. And so the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, one of the big problems is no matter how much you try to say to someone like that, hey, you're doing wrong, this is what they've done forever. This isn't wrong in their mind. This is normal behavior. And so, yeah, he's going to be with death squad members. He's going to be around in photographs with killers, with criminals. He's going to be involved in corrupt things. There are going to be allegations swirling everywhere. There's going to be insanity around him because he's from a time when this was normal behavior and everyone expected you to behave this way, like a gutter rat. Well, it's 2022. And he's sitting around probably wondering, why is everyone so mad? Well, everyone's so mad because this behavior is no longer acceptable. That's the problem, sir. And so that's my main thought right now, Mark. The more I think about it.
Not only why is it so wrong, is that he tries to come over as though he's so clean, that there's no evidence, there's nothing. I just want to help my people. That is all I do. Yeah. This takes me straight into the allegations being made by, according to the Vice News journalist, that a Mr. Su is actually alleging that he does these sort of questionable things for Barrett Jagdeo. Barrett right away denied that is not true. But what is not surprising, and this certainly doesn't come as a surprise, Jagdeo is the one who is doing all of the investigations and coming out now and saying, well, look, Su has denied making bribery allegations. No, Tom, we live in a society where this is unacceptable, that someone who's being accused, and according to the accuser, mind you, this person who's being accused is saying, no, that's not true. The accuser is saying it's not true. Your take, Tom, on this?
Well, first of all, I give the journalist who asked the tough questions here a lot of credit. Clearly, she had some tough questions for Mr. Su before she sat down with Mr. Jagdeo, right? And I think the problem that Mr. Su has is this. He was dealing with a modern professional journalist, someone who has been schooled in the art of journalism, someone who is a master at it, someone who isn't going to give you an easy interview, someone who's going to ask questions when you give answers, right? Like follow-up questions. And so I think what ended up happening here was in the normal, in her normal process of what she does in her job, she was asking questions and she was asking follow-up questions. And I think Mr. Su quickly found himself in like quicksand, where the questions just got him into a really bad place. And in this bad place, he began to say things that he didn't even realize he was saying because he was desperate. His heart was pounding. He knew he was making mistakes. He knew that if he makes a mistake with the media, that dealing with those people in China, that government, his life is on the line. So yeah, he's nervous. And yeah, he probably said some things he shouldn't have said. He probably truly in his mind thinks right now he didn't say anything wrong. He probably thinks that, but I'll bet she recorded that conversation, the interview. And if she didn't record it, she took really good notes, or there was a witness or something like that.
Well, I'm sure because I'm sure also you're familiar with Vice News. There are hundreds of reporters there, and those folks don't just go to do a sit-down interview with somebody like Barrett Jagdeo and not record it.
Exactly. So for him to come out and say what he's saying, for Jagdeo to say what he's saying, and for Mr. Su to say what he's saying, well, I hope they realize that modern journalists, they record stuff. So you can claim you were recorded, it's going to come out. And here's what's really bad.
And
what's really bad is if he said some things that are, that she was able to corroborate with other interviews, then this could turn criminal internationally very fast, right? So
criminal internationally and
international criminal, exactly. This could turn into something really, really bad, really, really quick.
And now this reporter, she has been traveling. She has done some very tough interviews. And why do you suppose? Well, we probably all know by now that he's trying to discredit this reporter. He's trying to say, well, look, she came there with an agenda, an anti-Chinese agenda, and all these different things. Explain it in your line of work, of course, the fact that Jack Dale was rushed out to discredit or attempt to discredit Isabella.
Okay, well, first of all, the fact that he sat down and had an interview with her, that lets you know he has no idea like what he's doing. So either he has no idea what he's doing, or he was forced into the interview because he heard that the interview with Mr. Sue didn't go so well. So he probably tried to clean it up. Well, here's the issue with dealing with a real journalist, someone who's who came down to Guyana, okay, to do a job. The problem that these guys have is she's not coming down empty-handed without knowing exactly what she's looking for. These news agencies, they're companies. They're in this to make a profit, ultimately. Okay. Yes, they are providing journalism. It is a service, but ultimately they have to make money to keep the lights on. And part of that process of keeping the lights on and making the money you need to keep the lights on is giving money to or spending money on journalists to go abroad, but only when you know for a fact there's a story there. Like they had to know they already have a story before she even went. So with that said, I think they should be prepared for many, many more things to come from her. They should be prepared because the interview part of it, just so you understand, in the line of work of journalism, when the journalist is interviewing you, that means they've done all of the work they need to do. The last thing they do is interview. That's the last thing. Okay. So what the public just saw was the last thing she did in the process of the job that she was supposed to do. Okay. So now everything you're going to see now coming out is going to be the product of all of the work that she completed in the Jack Dale interview. I think it's going to be a lot.
Yeah, you have dealt with journalists, reporters worldwide throughout the United States, whether New York Times, all of the big newspapers, Washington Post, and so forth. With the denial coming from Jack Dale, the obvious, and as expected, he was going to jump and do that hastily, accusing the reporter of being or having some sort of agenda.
Yeah.
A hidden agenda or whatever it is. What do you suppose now with all of the denial, including a denial from the man himself, allegedly Mr. Shu, according to the report, he has denied every single thing. He is denying it. He has denied that he ever said that he gave Jack Dale a bribe or that is what he does. He has denied everything. What do you suppose? Because this journalist, her reputation and her company's reputation is on the line. Well, we don't believe Jack Dale, mind you. Most Guyanese do not believe Jack Dale. But what do you believe would be her next move as a journalist?
Well, if you look at who she does work for, she does documentaries. She does a lot of video work. So the fact that she interviewed Mr. Shu and then interviewed Jack Dale tells me that she's in on what's going on with the forest and all of the wood that's being ripped out of there. Okay. She's on that story. So there's going to be something coming out about the forestry industry in Guyana. And most likely it's going to be about a genocide happening right now in the country.
Yeah, we want to talk about that in terms of the forestry. Right, because that's very important. Right. Something that a lot do not know. But before we get to that, Tom, Jack Dale has denied. Mr. Sue has allegedly denied, according to one of the PPP's mouthpiece media entity in Guyana. He hasn't called a press conference or whatever. A well-worded, legally worded document denying that he knows or he said anything about bribery and so forth. But what was unusual is the fact that this lady, who happens to be the Chinese ambassador to Guyana, She says Chinese embassy dissatisfied with attempts to smear Guyana-China cooperation. Tom, take a bite at this as what the Chinese ambassador to Guyana is saying.
Well, oh man, you have to understand she's representing a government that doesn't believe in human rights in any way, shape, or form, even for their own people, right? So there are no human rights in China. If you cross the line with their government for any reason whatsoever, then they can disappear you forever, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. And so you're talking about someone who works for people, and she knows what they're like, and she knows what she's like. They're ruthless. What she's saying right now is they're dissatisfied. So what does that mean? She's sending out the warning, which is, if this isn't fixed, if the media situation isn't fixed to our liking and into the liking of the Chinese government back home, then bad things will happen. I'm sure the bad things that will happen are things like they're going to pull funding from certain projects, right? They're going to shut down bank accounts of certain elected officials in China, right? They're going to do things like this. That's what she's doing. She's giving a warning. And so Jack Dale and these guys have a very small amount of time to make all of this go away. And if they don't, they're in trouble. And that's what she's saying. And not only that, but she's saying to people like me and to people like you and to people who are listening to this who feel like this isn't right. She's saying to all of us, they're dissatisfied with us, right? And so what does that mean when they're dissatisfied with us? They will inflict as much pain as needed to get what they need done. That's what she's saying. And that's the bottom line, and that is the reality.
How dangerous is this, Tom? How dangerous? Because according to what you're saying, that's exactly what she's saying, your interpretation. But how dangerous it is for democracy, especially in Guyana, freedom of the press, etc.
Well, it tells you when an ambassador starts to get involved with journalists reporting stories that are of the public's interest, when that starts to happen, when a regime like this starts to get interested in people who are speaking freely, we know what they do. And what they do is they crack down on everyone. People start going to jail. People start disappearing. Bad things happen. So she's given out the warning shot. People should listen and hear. If this continues to go in a way that they do not like, they will bring a lot of pain on people there in Guyana. They will. It's a guarantee. And she's warning everyone now.
I want you to take 30 or maybe 1 minute. I know you probably saw this video with Jack Geo, the part where the reporter Isabel asked about this Mr. Su or Shu. Take a look at Jack De's body language, and then I'll return and have you interpret it, please.
Source.
Okay, well,
maybe the Chinese company that did not get the agreement that they wanted here, maybe they're the ones who told you, or it could be just a fictitious thing.
Okay, well, let's talk about specific individuals. What is your relationship with Mr. Su Jerome?
So my relationship? Nothing. He's a tenant in my place, yeah.
And he's a good friend of yours?
Yes, yes. He is a friend of ours. His father was here from many years ago.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he lives next door to you.
Yes.
You know, he was able to arrange meetings and catch-ups with you at any point in the day. He claims
as a friend, yeah.
He claims that through his very close relationship with you, he's able to get any deal done.
Well, I don't know if that's
able to change laws for investors.
But then which law has been changed for any investor?
So Sue told us that if you want to get anything done in Guyana, you need some hookups. I'm very close with the Vice President and the other officials. The Vice President and I share a very close relationship. Also, if we do the business, he'll help out no matter what. There's no one else who can help like he does. He also says when he's talking about prospect investors that the Vice President said he can change the Constitution, he said he can manage. Everything is going to be done soon. He's really treating us as brothers. He's already trying to help us as much as possible. Of course, I need to give back to him in return.
Yeah.
Okay, so Tom, you saw that body language, facial expression, denial stage, totally shocked, got caught off guard with that question. He didn't expect it. Your take, Mr. Anderson.
Two things. The first thing I noticed about it, and I kept noticing it, was his tie, right? I know that doesn't, I know for it's like I sound ridiculous, but I don't. He's wearing a red tie, right? And in politics, especially Western politics, the color tie means a lot, like what color tie you're wearing. So if you're a leader and you want to give a speech for everyone to see, and the speech is one that is conciliatory, it's a soft speech, it's a speech of everyone must come together, let's work together kind of speech, they're going to wear a blue tie, a light colored tie. Okay, they're not going to wear a red tie. If they want to give a speech where we're going to war speech and we need to, strap up our boots and get ready as a country, it's time to fight, they're going to wear a red tie, right? So here he is with a super bright red tie coming into an interview with this reporter. What does that tell me? That tells me right away that he's trying to put on an air of power in this interview. He knows that it's going to be on video and he wants people to see him in a powerful state. That's why he's got the red tie. That's why if you look at him, he's leaning forward. He's pushing his hands out towards her continuously. That's him showing everyone who's watching, I got this under control, right? And who is he trying to say he's got it under control with? Probably people in the Chinese government, right? Probably, because I'm sure they're worried. And so he's trying to show everyone I'm strong, I'm powerful. That's the first thing I'm seeing in the interview. The second thing you notice is listen to her questions. Listen, she's reading from a piece of paper. She's reading the exact words transcribed from Mr. Su. The exact words. She's not making it up. She's not saying, well, when I had a conversation with him, he kind of said this or that. No, she's reading his words word for word. What does that mean? She's got a recording.
So you're 100% certain that she has it, of course.
She's got a recording. Absolutely.
Yeah.
She has a recording of this. Okay. So why is Jack Dale putting on the red tie, and why is he so pushing his hands forward and being so forceful? He knows this is going to be a long fight. He knows she has
and a very, very long fight. Let me just say, in case, because I know you've done a lot of research and work on Guyana, that the red actually is the color of Jack Dale's party, the party that he dictates over. And just as a form of a disclaimer, I'm wearing a burgundy tie, right? It's not red, it's burgundy. Now, Tom, this guy, Mr. Su has issued a release, and part of it says, I, Su Shu Rang, wish to state categorically, sounds as though the Attorney General helped him out with this, that I have never solicited any bribe, inducement from any company or individual for either myself or any government official, including the Vice President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Denial again.
No, well, you know what I hear when he says that? What I hear him saying is that what he did isn't outside of the normal course of business in Guyana. So if I'm reading between the lines, what Mr. Su is saying is, in order to do business, you have to pay these guys. Everybody pays these guys. So if everyone pays them, it's not considered a bribe. If he's doing something above and beyond paying, now that's bribing in his mind. So that's where I think he's coming from. I think what he's saying is, hey, I'm not doing anything that's unfair. I'm doing what everyone else is doing, and that is paying these guys fees, because if you don't pay them the fee, you can't do business in Guyana. That's just the reality. And guess what? Everyone knows this. That's why I said Jack Dale's from a time that no longer exists. He doesn't realize that doing that kind of business as an elected official now in the year 2022, it's unacceptable. It's just unacceptable. And he doesn't realize this. And Mr. Sue, like Jack Dale said, he's his friend. He's a tenant on his property, right? He's been in Guyana forever. His father was in Guyana since forever, right? So what's going on there? What's going on there? What's going on there is Mr. Sue knows how Guyana used to work way back in the day. Why? Because Mr. Sue's father taught him and said to him when he was little Sue, okay, fishing, he was telling him, hey, you have to pay these guys. If you don't, you can't get business done here. He taught him this. So I'm telling you, Mr. Sue, he's just doing what he's supposed to do in order to do business in Guyana. That's what he's thinking. That's what he's saying. And that's what this argument is going to be at the end of the day.
So we've had a denial from the Chinese ambassador, came out with a statement thinking that her country is under attack by that reporter, and Jack Dale is beating the same drum as the Chinese ambassador for obvious reasons. Mr. Sue ended here by saying, I have engaged with my legal representatives on these false reports and fabrications. False reports and fabrications.
I mean, like I said, from his perspective, I promise you, he is thinking he's done nothing wrong. And because he doesn't know any better. I'm telling you, I don't believe Jack Dale knows any better. Seriously, I think he lost the ability to know any better a long time ago. This is the problem in Guyana, is that the leadership itself, they don't know how evil they are themselves. They've got no clue. They really think they're good guys, right? And I think Mr. Sue is thinking that, I think they are so deluded that they think they've done nothing wrong here, man. I really think that's what they believe. But I believe the problem that they're going to have is this reporter, this journalist, she's a professional. She has their words like word for word down. She has the proof.
But yet she is a professional, but yet Jack Dale sees nothing at all is wrong to try to discredit this young lady, this professional reporter, journalist. Who does he think he is going to convince? Maybe some of his supporters, hardcore supporters, but not the world. Not the world.
But that's all he cares about, right? And isn't that one of the reasons why Guyana is suffering? Is because everyone just cares about their own little group, right? No one is reaching out to care about someone else's group. Okay. And so, yeah, like he's going to play to the crowd. But like I told you, the problem here for him is this is bigger than his group, right? This is bigger than the PPP. This is much bigger. This is an international scandal, period, end of story.
And stick a pin at that, Tom. International scandal.
Yes.
That's exactly what my next question would have been. World leaders, I'm sure, probably taking some time out to watch, or mainly individuals in the United States and China, watching what's happening with Jack Dale and these allegations. How is it the Americans are going to be looking at Jack Dale now?
Well, he's going to be a little bit toxic, but that's why I say I believe that's why he wore the red tie, and that's why I believe he was being so forceful, right? That's his other audience. He's trying to make the Americans who support him feel comfortable, right? Like Mr. Meeks, he's trying to look strong for them, right? And so he's going to play the game he's going to try to play here is kick the can down the road, play the game long, right? Make it go a long way out, and that way people will just forget about it, right? And no one cares about Guyana enough to keep on top of him. So that's going to be his strategy here, and he's going to keep telling the Americans and the people in China that he works with, he's going to keep telling them that he's got it all in control. Don't worry. This is easy to take care of. She's nothing but a stupid reporter. She doesn't know what she's doing. That's what he's telling them. And most of them are going to believe him until something really, really crazy happens, right? That shows that he's not telling the truth. Like a big story comes out in Vice News that gets put on HBO or Showtime in a documentary about how there's a genocide happening in the forests of Guyana. When something like that happens, then all of a sudden, all these people he's been convincing he's got the situation under control with, they're going to freak out and be really upset. So they should be, if they're watching now, be prepared, because she's going to drop a bomb like that on him. Okay, it's coming.
You're saying about that bomb, you're saying that it's coming. Forestry, stick a pin for a moment. You did mention earlier something about bank accounts. Senior officials probably have bank accounts in other parts of the world, hidden away, of course. And you mentioned China. Are you convinced that senior officials in the PPP have bank accounts in China?
I think senior officials in the PPP have bank accounts in China for sure, in Switzerland, in other places. They're all over the place. And here's the simple reason why I believe it. Just do the math. You've got a country full of natural resources where a handful of individuals are controlling access to these natural resources. And we're talking about billions of dollars, US dollars, billions of US dollars annually worth of natural resources that are being plundered out of Guyana. And if you see, the average people aren't benefiting from this at all. So who is? The handful of people who are controlling access to these natural resources. Well, how much money of this can you keep in Guyana? Not that much. You're going to have to start building, I don't know, tunnels to put it in, cash to put. So what do? You have to get bank accounts all over the place to put the money in. You have to. And that's what I think is happening with these guys. I'm pretty sure that's what's happening. Or either that, or they're allowing the entire world to plunder Guyana and they're not getting any money from it at all, which I've seen these guys. That's not how they operate. So they're getting the money and they're putting it in foreign accounts simply because Guyana isn't big enough to hold all the money. It's impossible. It's too much.
Way too much, indeed. Way too much. Ed Ahmad making shipments according to information, shipment of building materials to Jack Deere, sent allegedly from China, and all these. I don't know, Tom. I don't know. But we want to touch on the forestry. But before we do, let me just say to folks and welcome all of you guys who are now tuned into 107.1 FM. Let's go to someone who made contact with me to talk about the situation with Mr. Su. And that person is a Chinese national. And I want folks to listen to this brief message from this individual. Chinese national, mind you.
Mr. Mark, I believe every word of what Mr. Shu is saying. I am also afraid of Mr. Shu. Mr. Shu, if you are listening, I don't want anybody to harm you. This is a serious thing. Corruption is big. And we Chinese have to stop that. Been bullied by Jack Deere and other government official to pay bribe. It's big all over Guyana. A Chinese to pay by bribe. Mr. Shu, I hope you to stay strong. Do not. We respect and salute you for your bravery, for coming up and speak against corruption in Guyana. Thank you, Mr. Shu. We appreciate you, Mr. Mark. 马克，我相信每一句苏先生说的话。我现在很担心苏先生。苏先生，如果你在听我说话，我不想任何人威胁你。圭亚那政府腐败很严重，这个是很严重的事情。我们中国人必须停止被那些政府用武力行贿。苏先生，我希望你能继续你的发表，也希望你在新的一年万事如意。
Touche. Tom, That Chinese national is talking about the corruption. He wants to warn his fellow Chinese about the corruption and the allegations of paying bribes and all these things to senior government officials. He's also concerned about the life of Mr. Su. He believes that Mr. Su is in danger. Your take, sir, on that?
Yeah, I mean, of course he's in danger. He's in Guyana. I mean, of course he's in danger. It's sad. Like I said earlier, what this gentleman said confirms what I said earlier, which is Mr. Jagdeo is from a time where this behavior was okay. As a matter of fact, as a government leader, you had to behave this way. It was culturally something you had to do, because if you didn't do it, then the other politicians and the other elected officials around you, they would get upset because now you're hurting their money train, right? And so he's from a time where, you know, elected officials just take as much money as possible in exchange for giving access to the natural resources of Guyana. Like, that's what Jagdeo was raised on. That's how he was taught to be. He's an expert at that. That's what he does, right? I mean, he's not who he is politically in Guyana because he's an expert at transparency and good government. No, he's at where he's at the upper echelons of Guyana politics. He made it to the top, and he stays at the top because he's a master at those kind of politics, which are, you take money in exchange for access, period, end of story. It's a business transaction, buddy, and that's it. He's a master at that. And so what you're dealing with here is a guy, at the end of the day, I don't even know if he psychologically even knows the evil that's going on inside of him. He's got no clue. He's got no clue. And so when I hear this man, that recording you gave, what he's saying is that these Chinese businessmen are being shaken down hardcore by people like Jagdeo. That Jagdeo has gotten, what he's saying is Jagdeo and people like him have gotten so greedy that it's out of control. And now people who are speaking up about it, their lives are in danger, like Mr. Su, which I believe it. But I have to say this, Mr. Su knew what he was getting involved in. Okay, he knows better than anyone what's going on over there. And he has benefited greatly from what's been going on over there. So it does feel a little bit disingenuous, because right now, what you have is a situation where Mr. Su, if I'm not wrong, his company has the second largest allotment of timber concessions from the government of Guyana. Number two, behind number one, which is another Chinese company. So the top two slots that own the most forest land concessions are two Chinese companies. Mr. Su is number two. So he has benefited greatly from doing business in Guyana the way that Jagdeo is a master at doing business. For him now to get upset, it makes me wonder if they aren't all trying to get out from underneath this Vice story that's coming. Like, I think everybody knows this is going to be bad. And I think Mr. Su may be trying to get out. And I think this guy who's speaking to you may be helping him get out from underneath what's coming with this Vice story.
You know, I want us to get into this gold heist many years ago in Curacao. And I'm sure you're very familiar with that. Before I ask you that question, because someone has recently been convicted, and there is some interesting story out of the court report, what this guy admitted and evidence presented in a court out there in, I believe, somewhere there in the U.S. Oh, yeah, Florida. Let's go back to what this guy is saying and how fearful he is for Mr. Su, while I have you prepared for those questions concerning gold smuggling out of Guyana.
Mr. Mark, I believe every word of what Mr. Su is saying. I am also afraid of Mr. Su. Mr. Su, if you are listening, I don't want anybody to harm you. This is a serious thing. Corruption is big. And we Chinese have to stop that. Been bullied. by Jack Deal and other government officials to pay bribe. It's big all over Guyana. A Chinese to pay by bribe. Mr. Xu, I hope you to stay strong. Do not. We respect and salute you for your bravery, for coming up and speak against corruption in Guyana. Thank you, Mr. Xu. We appreciate you, Mr. Mark. 马克，我相信每一句苏先生说的话。我现在很担心苏先生。苏先生，如果你在听我说话，我不想任何人威胁你。圭亚那政府腐败很严重，这个是很严重的事情。我们中国人必须停止被那些政府用武力行贿。苏先生，我希望你能继续你的发表，也希望你在新的一年万事如意。
Tom, very, very frightening, very troubling for a country like Guyana, where people are suffering. You spoke about the potholes. Many people have to go through the potholes while some are driving Lamborghinis and so forth and so on. Very, very scary situation in Guyana. Gold smuggling, Curacao, many years ago, when Robert Pisad was sitting there. Robert Pisad happens to be, at that time, the Minister of Natural Resources. He's the nephew-in-law of Bharat Jagdeo. When that Curacao gold bust, millions of US dollars. Finally, someone has been convicted out there in Florida for that gold heist. What do you know of that case, sir?
So that case was connected to several cases involving a group of individuals that were in the business of buying gold from individuals who had gold around the world. And these individuals got together. These were normal guys, they were like used car salesmen almost, and they got together and they crafted a scheme wherein a little bit over a year, in about 2-year period of time, they were able to launder 3.5 billion with a B US dollars into South America with that amount of gold leaving. $3.5 billion. The Curacao gold was a part of that. And when you dig in and you see how they did it and how they were able to pull it off, Guyana became a very important place for them, because Guyana, for them, they claim in text messages, which the government got from them, in text messages, they claim that they had VIP access to exporting in Guyana.
And so, wait a minute, you're saying all of this appeared in court as evidence that they...
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Messages as evidence communicating with folks in Guyana, and some of the names of those individuals do exist, I suppose, but to talk about how they were allowed to smuggle gold out of Guyana?
Listen to this. I'll read to you the transcript from the criminal complaint in federal court.
Sure.
On May 27th, 2016, Granda complains about the volume of gold brought in that month because of a state of emergency in Madre de Dios, and complaints about not having been able to smuggle more gold through Bolivia and Guyana. Granda said, looks like 86,000. We got screwed by price. His partner Rodriguez said, F you, still a good month. Granda responded, a good month is 94,000 plus. Barrage, another individual, sent an unknown media file to them, while Rodriguez said, then you have pulled your weight. Granda then said, I have failed. Spot price and state of emergency in Madre de Dios got us. Then he says this, okay? Granda says, looks like 86, he says, they go on to say that Guyana Hold on, I'm pulling it up now. He says, looks like 86,000. We got F by price. FU still a good month, right? Then he goes, Granda says, I have failed. Spot price and state of emergency amount of the deals. I got caught. I believe I didn't plan it. Yet Bolivia and Guyana have VIP access to export. And you can't get that anymore in Peru, correct? So Granda, the guy, and this guy got convicted and went to prison for years, federal jail, said that Bolivia and Guyana have VIP access to export their gold, especially when they couldn't get it out of Peru. So here's a man who was literally convicted of smuggling $3.5 billion of gold out of South America. And one of the places that he had VIP access to export it out of was Guyana. Now, how did he get that VIP access? And who was he paying in the government of Guyana to get VIP access for gold smugglers and money launderers?
And that's billions of dollars.
Billions.
And that
$3.5 billion, American dollars.
That ship at that time that got caught in Curacao, the police, I remember many years ago, it was probably over 10 years ago, that I got in touch with the police there in Curacao to find out what was happening. They finally released those workers on that ship, most of whom I suppose were innocent. But this guy out there, out in Florida, was finally convicted.
Yes,
right?
him and his buddies. And I'll tell you what, this is where Guyana came into play, okay?
Sure.
In Peru, so when they illegally mine for gold, or when they're going in and they're pulling out timber, they use chemicals that pollute the water. And this pollution causes a lot of illness in people who are living out in these areas. And so in Peru, they were having children, hundreds of children, close to thousands of children getting mercury poison from the water, because the illegal gold mining was causing mercury to go into the drinking water and the water that they were swimming in and fishing in. And so there was a mercury poisoning outbreak happening in Peru, and that caused the government to crack down on all illegal gold mining because it was killing people. And when that happened, these guys started to use Guyana and their VIP access to get the gold out, because Peru was shutting it down because too many people were dying in the jungles and in the forests from the poisoning in the waters. Well, I see that, and I wonder, in Guyana, I know there's illegal gold mining going on. I know that's happening. I know that there's all kinds of chemicals being used out in the timber industry. Are there sick people in the forests of Guyana? I wonder. There probably are. But guess what? Unlike the Peruvian government, does the government of Guyana care about who's living out there and who may be dying out there right now? I don't know if they care. The Peruvian government cared, and they cracked down big time, so much that these gold smugglers, in their text messages, were going crazy how much the Peruvians cracked down on them. Okay, but that doesn't happen in Guyana. So you have the other issue here of what's happening out in the jungle, what's happening out in the countryside. Are people getting sick? Are cancer rates going through the roof? Is the government sending doctors out to check the populations? What's happening? I noticed on Mr. Su's website that they have prominent pictures showing Chinese doctors giving medical care to hundreds of people out in the middle of the jungle, hundreds of people. And so I was wondering, why are so many people so sick that they need so many Chinese doctors from China to treat hundreds, almost 1,000 people? There aren't that many people living out in these places, right? So they had to be bringing in multiple villages of sick people that were really, really sick. Well, what are they getting sick from? What's going on out there? No one knows. These are the issues I believe the Vice reporter was digging into, and this is what is going to start coming out. And this is why even Mr. Su is trying to say, hey, I don't like this, because this is the bigger problem at hand. Is there a genocide happening in Guyana? Is there, and no one's speaking about it? And is that what this Vice reporter is doing right now? I don't know.
Forestry, billions of dollars again. Forestry. all manner of things given away, land, big land, thousands upon thousands of acres. Talk about what you know about the forestry. And of course, you spoke about this big story that may possibly come out from that Vice News journalist. We don't know, but maybe very soon. What do you know about the forestry and these Chinese companies in Guyana?
So we know this, right? That when the Granger administration first came in to office years ago, the first thing they found was that Jagdeo and the PPP had sold off every single acre of forestry that is concessionable forestry for the entire country of Guyana. All of it. So when the Granger people came in, they found out that the PPP had sold off every tree, all of them, through the whole country. And so forever now, you have a situation where every single tree has been sold, all of them. So with that in mind, two Chinese companies hold the top two spots with the two biggest concessions. And the way they got those concessions, the PPP a lot of times went in and forcibly took land from people, just took it from them and shifted it over to these Chinese businesses, right? So that's what's happening right now with the forestry. And of course, there aren't any real rules out there. Who knows what they're doing out there? Who knows how much poison they're putting into the waters? Who knows? There's no one watching what's going on, right? And so there could be a humanitarian and environmental catastrophe happening right now in the heart of Guyana, in pristine, beautiful land. There could be a catastrophe happening right now. And it's due to the PPP and Jagdeo selling off like everything. It's unbelievable, but that's what they did.
So then the high possibility, I'm glad that you've mentioned that the PPP regime took away people's land. We know that that's exactly what happened. Thousands upon thousands of acres, deprived people their land. It's happening right now. People who are mining for gold, they have taken away people's land again. It's happening. I know of a case right now. I sent a letter, an email off to the guy who sits there as Minister of Natural Resources. They acknowledged receipt of the letter. I questioned, why are you guys taking away somebody's piece of land, mining for gold that was legally granted to them? Lots of skullduggery happening there. And so you are onto something. So the possibility is that the reporter from Vice News, Isabel, actually went not just to ask Jagdeo about corruption, but to talk about the forestry, to talk about this genocide, this big thing, this unhealthy situation in the forest, and for people, of course, who are living there. And in doing so, she stumbled upon this very, very critical and important piece of information from Mr. Su. That could be exactly what happened, right, Tom?
That's it. That's what it sounds like to me. That's why an organization like Vice would send a reporter out to Guyana, right? Because they're looking for a big story, bigger than, because this is what, okay, so for everyone listening in the news business in America, okay, when someone like Jagdeo takes money as a bribe from a businessman, right? In America, journalists call that story dog bites man. And that's a story that no one reports, because guess what? Dogs are supposed to bite men. That's what happens, right? What they want to report is the story where the man bites the dog. You see? And so why would Vice send a reporter down into a situation where her life is at risk there, okay? Her life is at risk. This is an expensive endeavor. They had to get security for her. This wasn't simple, okay? They put all this money into that just to report that, oh, this dog bit a guy yesterday. No, like no one wants to report that a dog bit a man, because everyone knows dogs bite men. It happens all the time. Who cares? They're spending money because there's a man bite dog story in Guyana. So just imagine, what could be a man biting a dog kind of story happening in Guyana? It has to be horrible. It just has to be. It has to be something on the level of genocide. Okay? It has to be. So that's what this is about. And that's why Jack Dale's in his red tie and he's all, oh, and that's why Mr. Sue is saying the corruption is unbearable, even though the corruption helped him get the second largest concession of timber in the entire country. Oh, but it's so terrible. Everyone's running for cover because she's got a big story and it's really big. I promise you. And that's why this is such a big problem.
Let me ask you this while we wait for that really big story. Does it bother you? I know you sit in the United States of America. You do a lot of your stories around the U.S., around the world, corrupt countries, and so forth. You're a brave man, and I salute you for that. But when you listen to Jack Dale, who has a mansion, right? Well, what is considered a mansion in Guyana? This is his mansion. He is now claiming that Mr. Sue is his tenant of a property he owns next to this mansion. The property I was made to understand that Jack Dale was talking about was on the market not so long ago for 150 million Guyana dollars. 150 million Guyana dollars. I don't know. Does that bother you that here is Sue, who is now renting that property, obviously not for $5,000 US dollars per month? Mr. Sue lived out of the Marriott Hotel for a very long time. Suddenly, he's now a tenant of Barra Jack Dale. The journalist asked a very, very important question. What do you know of Mr. Sue? Do you know how he earns his money? Do you know where he works? Jack Dale said, no, he's not. He doesn't know. He's not concerned about that, but he doesn't know. Now, how could you rent a property like the one that he's renting? He says that to somebody that you do not know how they make their money. Is that a red flag for you, Mr. Anderson?
Well, it's a red flag. It is, but here's the bigger red flag, right? Well, it's a red flag, okay? But let me tell you why it's a bigger red flag than you might think, okay? One of the old ways that elected officials here in the United States would take bribery money is they would rent out a property to a tenant, and that tenant would pay way more money than they should to rent the property. So let's say the property should rent for, let's say, 5,000 Guyana dollars a month, right? What will happen is Mr. Sue will say on paper he's paying 5,000 Guyana dollars a month, but in reality he could be paying 1 million Guyana dollars a month, right? And that just comes into Jack Dale as rental income, right? That's how it comes in. So that's not a bribe, it's rental income. And on paper it says 5,000. No one knows that really 1 million a month is going. No one knows that. And especially if it's a bank account that's in China and it's direct deposit, I mean, from another Chinese bank account, then no one's ever going to know, right? So that's what, when I hear the man who owns the second largest concession of timber in the country renting a piece of property from Jack Dale, what I hear is, oh, that's a way to pay a bunch of money for what you need without it looking like a bribe.
That's a good way of breaking it down. And while we await for concrete evidence, we see where this is leading. We see people are not silly. I just want to remind our folks that these are all allegations, yet to be proven, but I want Jack Dale to know that people are not silly at all. People are not little kids. We can read between the lines. We're very smart people. But let me ask you, are you convinced, Tom, that Jack Dale has a bank account in China?
Yeah, I mean, why not? Why wouldn't he? I mean, look, I'm putting myself in his shoes, right? If I'm him and I consider myself the smartest man in Guyana, the best businessman, the greatest politician in the history of the country, this is what I believe. And I believe that if not for a lot of the stupid people around me, I would be recognized as one of the greatest leaders in the world. And so, of course, for him to have money in China, why not? He's a king on this planet. He can have an account wherever he wants to have an account. Why can't he have an account there is how he thinks. And so I just think someone with his type of ego and his perspective on the world, he would be mentally ill if he didn't have an account in China, I believe. Seriously. He's not mentally ill. Like, he knows what he's doing. He knows who he is. And at the end of the day, he also knows most likely he'll never be caught, because even if he does get caught, before he gets caught, he's going to leave. He will leave. He'll be gone and no one's going to catch him. He's got friends in other countries. I mean, come on, guys. So ultimately, yeah, I'm pretty sure he's got bank accounts all over the place with a lot of money, because I believe he believes he deserves at least that much because he's that great.
You know, I know next week, Wednesday, you will return. We will touch on human trafficking and the possibility that people are being trafficked from parts of the world like Pakistan, Bangladesh, and so forth, and being smuggled into the US to do not so good things, mind you. We'll touch on that next week. But before we go, are you surprised, though, Tom, that such a big story about Jack Deere, allegations about bribe and all these manner of things, and the media in Guyana is so quiet?
Well, look, their lives are at risk. Let's just tell the truth, right? Like, in order to have real journalism in a country, you have to have a government that supports journalism. Not only does the Guyana government not support journalism, they are actively opposed to it, where they will arrange for a death squad to eliminate you and your family if you report the wrong types of things. Okay. So the lawlessness there is so off the chain, it's almost impossible to have real journalism in Guyana, unfortunately. With that said, for those who are there, who are trying their best to do what they can, be careful, because Huawei laid down the backbone for all internet traffic in Guyana. So any kind of communications you're doing, the Chinese will know. So you have to be very careful. For those who are worried, and rightfully so, that if you tell the truth and you work towards truth in Guyana, you could risk your life. You will risk your life if you do that. So be very smart about it. I hope one day we don't have to talk like this about Guyana, but that's where we're at now. And that's just the honest truth. Okay. That's just the truth. Things have to change. And this is one of the things that have to change. The people of Guyana have to demand that their government allows true journalism to happen, right? They have to demand that. That's something that most people don't think about, that most parties, when they say, hey, vote for us, we're the PNC, vote for us. They don't say vote for us because we're for journalism. None of them say this, right? And the reason why they don't say this, because they don't want the good journalism either. That's just the truth. None of them do. Okay. It takes guts to do that. And here's the reason why. Like I said, Jack Dale is from a time where they did things that were just wrong, period. Okay. He has a history. Every elected official in Guyana has a history. And most of them, I guarantee you, have done things that aren't so great. So none of them really want good journalism, because there are skeletons in all of their closets piled up to the ceiling. If you open up any of their closets, you're going to see a mountain of bones falling out for all of them. Okay. So look, it's tough. I know I will not criticize the journalists there because I know the situation they're in is untenable. It's impossible. But with that said, if you're doing your job and you're trying to do it better, be very careful. The Chinese are watching everything.
Watching everything. I'm sure the Chinese ambassador to Guyana may hear about what is being said here tonight, since the Chinese are watching everything. Some of our folks might be wondering, with all that is happening with Guyana and corruption, allegations of corruption at the highest level, that the Americans are watching and not much is being done. Do you foresee any time in the very near future, apart from visa revocations and so forth and so on, what do you predict as we prepare to wrap up that the Americans will do about this? And Jack Dave sitting and basically telling the Americans and the Western folks, to hell with you guys. I'm sticking to China. China gives me money. China does everything for me. It's as though he used the Western folks for them to place him in office. And now he's saying, to hell with you guys.
Yeah, I think ultimately, look, whenever the U.S. government moves, once they decide to move, if they start at whatever point they start at when they're moving into stuff like this, expect it to take about 2 years, I'd say, just about. So now getting to the point where they actually start moving, that sometimes can take years as well. Are we at a point where the government in the United States is moving on Guyana when it comes to corruption? I don't believe we're at that point. So I don't see anything happening for at least the next 2 years from our end. It's anything that people can see with their own eyes, right? For at least the next 2 years. That's just reality. Unless something happens in Guyana that causes an emergency situation for that to change. But if things continue the way they are for at least the next 2 years, I wouldn't expect the US government to make any big moves. Put it like this. Let's say today the US government decided they had enough evidence to go after Jack Deo, to put him on the sanctions list for individuals who are supporting networks of smugglers and drugs and human traffickers and stuff like that, which our government can do. And by the way, President Biden can do it with his signature. He can ban Jack Dale from the entire world's economy with one signature. Okay. Let's say let's say we want to do that. That's about a 2-year process, because what happens is in order to do that and get someone on that list and to wipe them out that way, the State Department has to be involved. Homeland Security has to be involved. The CIA, everybody gets involved, the NSA, and they go through a full investigation. They go through it takes a long time. So even if they do the quickest thing, which is put Jack Dale on sanctions, that is going to take, if they decide to do it right now, that's going to take at least a year, probably 2 years. So I don't expect anything to happen over the next 2 years. Now, with that said, something could have already started 2 years ago on Jack Dale. Okay.
Or maybe 5 years ago.
We see the fruition come now, right? But I don't think so. All the signs to me are pointing towards people paying attention to things right now, and paying attention. It takes a few weeks or a few months for that to go from paying attention to things to start moving, and then another 2 years after that. So the bottom line is, I think for at least 2 years, you're going to have to deal with the same old, in my opinion.
Let me ask you, as we prepare to go, Tom, this Taiwan. First, we heard from the Foreign Affairs Minister of Guyana, Yu Tad, who said that Guyana recognizes Taiwan. Mere hours or less than an hour after, Jack Deo and others said, no. We do not recognize Taiwan. End of story. Yesterday, I believe Jack Deo said that, that wasn't a decision made by cabinet or the president or quote unquote his president. It wasn't a decision made at that level. It was a low level employee who did that. I'm like, wait a minute, is he describing the foreign affairs minister in his installed government as a low-level employee? How much you think Taiwan is playing, and how disappointed is the Americans concerning what Jack did to Taiwan and the PPP? Sorry, did to Taiwan.
Well, look, when I think what he's saying is that the minister, what he's saying is the minister's staffer or aide is who made this mistake. He's not blaming the minister, because in Jack Dale's world, you have to understand, the person who holds office, they're only there to transact business for their bank accounts and access to Guyana's resources. The staffers actually do the real work, right? So from Jack Dale's perspective, that wasn't the minister he was just speaking from what the aides and the assistants gave him to speak from, and they made the mistake. And that's where it needs to be fixed, not with the minister himself. I'm sure that's how Jack Dale views that situation. With that said, it's not surprising that he would have to look. Jack Dale's in a position where he has to say that Guyana isn't recognizing Taiwan. Like he's not in a position to say otherwise, because China has their hooks into him in Guyana and the PPP, right? And so I think they probably owe a lot of money to the Chinese. And, it's when you owe a lot of money, you really can't speak the truth. So I'm not surprised that he said that. From a U.S. perspective, until there's some type of UN resolution and the rubber meets the road, I don't think anyone on this side is going to care that much. With that said, I wonder how the embassy is feeling right now and how our ambassador is feeling right now. They probably aren't feeling too happy about the situation. And so yeah, that's where I think that's where that's at. With that said, Mark, look, what's happening with Jack Dale, this is an international incident, scandal, and it's involving China. This is a big deal. The people of Guyana need to understand that, Jack Dale's playing a game that, if he loses, the people of Guyana are going to pay, not him. That's the bottom line. And so that's why he's putting on the show he's putting on. That's why he's going to act like he's truly confident and nothing has happened. Nothing's going on here. He's going to say it's all a lie. He's going to say whatever he needs to say, because at the end of the day, all he needs to do now is just avoid everything. And when it's time to pay the price, he's going to ensure that the people of Guyana will pay the price. The innocent people of Guyana, you will be the ones who will pay the price for what he's doing right now, is the bottom line. And that's what's sad about this.
Very sad indeed. Next week, we'll touch on human trafficking, money launderers, and all these other, some folks on the wanted list in Guyana and so forth. Tom, thank you so much. I know you don't have to do this for us, but here it is. You are breaking things down, explaining things down, based on your experience, your work experience, and lots of other things. I'm glad that you mentioned skeletons. A lot of them do have skeletons in their closets, and I know you have a lot of those skeletons.
Documented and put away in good places.
Good places. Thank you so much. Anything else before we go quickly to the game?
That's it.
See you next Wednesday, Tom.
Good night, everybody. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Tom Anderson there. He'll be back next Wednesday to give us not just gaff, real facts. Tell it like it is. Based on his work experience, he works out there in Washington, D.C. He does a heck of a lot of things, and I'm glad that a busy man he is has taken time out to be with us, to share his time with us right here on 107.1 FM. I also want to take time out to salute lots of brave journalists and reporters around the world. This young lady was brave enough to go to Guyana and ask a question that a lot of us know about, and some folks might not be that brave to ask him about that. And that is why Jack Deere runs. He runs away from real journalists, real reporters who will ask him the tough questions. Jack Deere runs away from those sort of people. He doesn't want the tough questions. He's afraid of the tough questions. And so he goes on crazy people's programs and all of these things where he can be shielded with propaganda and these sort of things, where he's comfortable. He sits and he drinks a coffee and he just basically sue. That's all he does. He doesn't like to face real reporters, real journalists. Now, here's what I'm saying to Jack Deere. If you want to refute, if you want to talk about Sue or whatever, feel free. I'll give you 2 hours of airtime right here on 107.1 FM. Let us talk. I'm willing to interview you, to ask you questions. You don't have to be afraid that you'll be attacked or on my black book or these sort of things. No, come on here and I'll pose some questions for you, real questions. Don't go and sit and drink high wine and Marby and some crazy nut forum disguised as interview and report. No. Go to real people, real interviewers. Go to them. And I know you know folks, well, my number is public. Feel free to send me a message to say that you are willing to come on this show, to refute the allegations. Don't just try to do it yourself. You're not an investigator. Don't go to your propaganda media entities. Don't. Come right here. Let's talk. I'll give you 2 hours. You can put on your red tie or whatever red. I'm willing to give you 2 hours of airtime right here on 107.1 FM. Let me interview you. I'd love to do it. Trust me, I'd love to do it. And Mr. Sue, if you're listening, let's talk. Let's talk. Until tomorrow, same place, same time. I want to thank yesterday. Nigel London sat in for me. Thank you so much, Mr. London. But look, I'm also afraid of what may happen to Mr. Sue. Because Mr. Sue, denial, you can tell he pulled a shaggy, that it wasn't him. He knows, in my opinion, he knows that the reporter, that journalist from Vice News is not going to lie. She's not going to lie. And I believe her. Trust me, I do believe her. But Mr. Sue, a lot of people are fearful that something may happen to you. We hope not, including this Chinese national who is also fearful for your life. I close by replaying the Chinese national, what he has to say about Mr. Sue and other Chinese in Guyana. Until tomorrow, same place, same time. God bless you all. And thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Mark, I believe every word of what Mr. Shu is saying. I am also afraid of Mr. Shu. Mr. Shu, if you are listening, I don't want anybody to harm you. This is a serious thing. Corruption is big. And we Chinese have to stop that. Been bullied by Jack Deere and other government officials to pay bribe. It's big all over Guyana. A Chinese to pay by bribe. Mr. Shu, I hope you to stay strong. Do not. We respect and salute you for your bravery, for coming up and speak against corruption in Guyana. Thank you, Mr. Shu. We appreciate you, Mr. Mark. 马克，我相信每一句苏先生说的话。我现在很担心苏先生。 苏先生，如果你在听我说话，我不想任何人威胁你。圭亚那政府腐败很严重，这个是很严重的事情。我们中国人必须停止被那些政府用武力行贿。苏先生，我希望你能继续你的发表，也希望你在新的一年万事如意。
So, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington law firm located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you, so call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.